Hello and welcome to the Stitching Over the Days podcast. My name is Constance and I bring you greetings from Columbia, South Carolina, here in the United States. And this is episode 27. I want to thank any returning viewers and also any new viewers for taking a moment out of your day to hear all about my sewing, knitting, crochet, and crafty adventures. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as cleocmc, that's CLEOCMC. There's also a Ravelry group, Stitching Over the Days, and also there's a blog where the show notes can be found, stitchingoverthedays.wordpress.com. So, I have quite a few things to share with you, and I knew as my list of makes and finished objects continued to grow that I would have to do a podcast, because the longer in between would be an even longer episode, and that means more editing. And so I was like, I have to do a podcast. And so I squeezed out time this afternoon. I actually wrote it into my schedule to get this done. And so I'm happy to come before you today to share my recent finished objects, my current works in progress, and yeah, I think that's what the focus will be. I may do, depending on the time, share with you some recent acquisitions that I have. And also I want to end with some podcast recommendations for you to enjoy. Now, I'm not sure exactly what order to go in. I think I usually do the sewing objects after I share the knitting and crochet. But I'm trying to think. I think that we'll do the sewing projects first, because I have 3 sewing projects to share with you. And also then we'll move into the crochet, and then we'll end with the knitting, because I want to end with a piece that I'm very and most excited about, and I can't wait to talk with you all about. So let's begin with the sewing. In the previous episode, I shared with you my plans to make a Gingham Simplicity 2444 dress. I actually forgot the pattern envelope, and I just like to show it because it may be someone out there who's searching for the pattern. So I'll be back. So I made a Simplicity 2444. This is my 13th time making the dress of the Gingham version, and then I also have another version to share with you. So needless to say, it's definitely my favorite dress pattern. This pattern here, and it is currently out of print, but I know that a few people told me that they've been able to find copies on Etsy and also maybe Amazon, and maybe eBay may have copies. And so I made the Gingham version, and I love it so much. I think it's so lovely. And I also made a matching sash. Oh, here it is, to go with it. And the matching sash came from a pattern that I haven't made the dress for yet, but I plan to make it one day. But that's Butterick 6446. I really like that wide sash on that pattern. And other than that, I made no modifications. That cotton was purchased from Joann's, and it's a lovely basic cotton, and I remember it came in an extra wide length. So I purchased 3 yards, I think, so I still have quite a bit left, and I'm thinking a blouse would be nice. Also, I made the size 4, but I do, of this pattern of Simplicity 2444, but I do take out the seams just a tad, because I played around with this pattern so much. And other than that, a modification I made was, instead of the pleats, I went for a gathered skirt, because I just found that gathered skirts look really nice with the pattern. And also, when it comes to cottons, that is it. No major modifications. I mean, the pattern works, and I just like it so much. I've been wanting another Gingham item in my wardrobe, because I wear my black and white Gingham Hollyburn skirt quite a bit, and one day I hope to add a black and white Gingham dress, or a red and white Gingham dress, to my wardrobe, but we'll see when that happens. Okay, so I will now insert some footage of myself wearing the dress, giving you a twirl so you can see how the fit is, and also some images, and I'll put that here. Okay, so since we were talking about Simplicity 2444, I figured I'd just go right into my second version that I made. Now, when I started making my Jane Seymour, I always knew that I wanted to make a matching garment, especially for that design, because it was so beautiful and it deserved its own garment. Of course, I plan to wear the Jane Seymour. See, I'm talking about it already, but I plan to wear that cardigan with quite a few things, and like I think it looks great with just a black dress, even my black high waist pants with a black shirt under, my green turtleneck top. It looked really nice with that. Also my tan corduroy skirt. So obviously I'm going to fit it in my wardrobe, but still I wanted something so special for this very special garment, and I was just envisioning from the beginning having a tan garment to go with the Jane Seymour. Now mind you, I was thinking about changing the garment to a green garment to pair with this, and I actually did an Instagram poll, and I had you all vote, or those of you who follow me on Instagram, on what fabric I should pair with the Jane Seymour, and the majority voted for the tan fabric. I think it was 59%, and so I went with it, and I was happy to do that because that was the original plan anyway. So yes, I made a Simplicity 2444 dress for my Jane Seymour especially. I also made a matching sash, which I forgot to bring over here, but the matching sash is from Simplicity 1803. And as you can see, I went for the pleats because this fabric is a bit of a heavier weight, and I also imagined those pleats would really look quite lovely with that high waist cardigan, and having those defined pleats would look really crisp and neat, and that's what I really wanted to go for. There's the back. And I found that zipper, which is a perfect match at Joann's. So as you can see, I made no modifications. I made the same size as I did for the previous Simplicity 2444, and I really like it. So there's not much else to say. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. But what can you say about a pattern that you made? This is the 14th version. Result was beyond anything I imagined. I think it's very nice and elegant, and I really like it. I like it a lot. And also that staple color goes so well with pretty much everything, and I like pairing. I tried it on with my blouses underneath. Of course, it's going to look really lovely in the colder months with those turtlenecks underneath, and it looked really great with most of my cardigans. So it's definitely a staple dress, and I really like it, and so I kind of am happy that I decided to go that route. Okay, a few episodes back I mentioned that I'm a part of the Minerva.com maker team, and so I created my second garment for them, and this is Butterick 6563. This is from Gertie's line with Butterick, which these patterns have such a lovely vintage flair. And you can see it has a necktie, and that's the back. Now I like this top because it's such a versatile piece. It can be quite prim and proper. Yeah, it can be prim and proper. That's such a tongue twister. When you button it at the top and then you tie the necktie around the neck, and I love that. But then you can make it really fun and playful by just unbuttoning the top and then tying it at the waist and then putting that sash around your hair. And then I also like that it was a versatile piece because it looked, like I was saying, really nice under sleeveless dresses. It looked nice with my high waist skirts. It looked nice with my high waist pants. I even paired it with my autumn vine sweater. I put it under my autumn vine sweater to see how it looked, which I'll talk about later. And it was so nice. So obviously you can get a lot of uses and wear out of this top. So I expect that I'll probably be wearing it quite a bit. So the fabric is from Minerva.com, and it is a floral cotton sateen, and I chose the blue colorway because I love blue florals. They also had a pink colorway, which was quite lovely, and I think that the fabric line is called Chelsea Garden. I'm not sure, but it is a beautiful fabric. And also they have the fabric listed as a medium weight on the site, but as you can see, I would actually say that this is more of a lightweight. It's very nice, and then it felt so comfortable when I wore it because it was so hot yesterday. And so I went outside to get pictures in the park, and the garment felt so nice. And I also decided to make the size 8 because the size 6, I didn't want it to be so fitted. I wanted a breezy top, even though it's definitely a nice put together top, but I still wanted it to be easy and breezy. And so I went with the size 8, and I love that I made that choice. And so it fits really, really nicely, and I like it quite a bit. There was something else I wanted to say about it. Oh, I was going to say it presses so beautifully. Oh my goodness. I enjoy working with cotton the most out of all of the fabrics because I just find the pressing to be so satisfying. And that's how it was with this garment. And I pre-washed it before I cut into it on the regular setting of the washer, and I tumble dried it. And when it came out of the dryer, I didn't even have to iron it to knock out any like lingering wrinkles, and I just cut right into it. So it's a beautiful fabric. It's really just quite a lovely fabric, and I think that I did a great job, or I really like the choice of choosing to make a blouse to go with it because it just goes so lovely with that fabric. So that is it for Okay, that concludes it for the sewing portion of this episode. And now we'll get into the finished crochet project. Now, I mentioned that I was planning to make the Summertime Tank by TL Yarn Crafts in the previous episode, and I completed it. And this is it. It's such a lovely, easy top, and I think that a beginner crochet, is a crocheter, a beginner in crochet would probably find this pattern quite lovely to work up if you wanted to venture into crochet garments for the first time. The stitch pattern was really lovely, and it's like a really nice mesh stitch pattern. I used the Rowan Summerlight DK. This was my first time using Rowan Summerlight DK. It didn't disappoint. It was quite lovely to work with, and the color is called Summer, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, I also shortened the body by 4 inches, I believe, because I wanted to wear it over my skirts, and most of my skirts are high waist, and also most of my dresses, they're fit and flare, and so I knew I wanted a cropped length. Let's see. I didn't say how much I short. Oh yes, I did say it on my Ravelry notes. I was just checking. I shortened it by 4 inches, and I'm glad that I referred to my Ravelry notes because I did steam press this garment for blocking instead of doing a deep soak. And I just simply pinned the garment to measurements on the towel, and then I steam pressed it by placing a pressing cloth over the garment, and then I put the iron on the steam setting. I also used back stitch throughout. And the armhole depth was supposed to be 7 inches, but I knew that that would be too deep for me, and so I went for a 6-inch armhole depth. And for the seaming, I used back stitch. I find I like how sturdy back stitch is, or it works really nicely with crochet garments. I remember using it for my Hahana sweater also, and I thought that it was quite a lovely stitch to use for crochet garments, and so I may be going that route with all of my crochet garments in the future. But it is a very lovely pattern, and this was my first pattern by TL Yarn Crafts, and I currently have another work in progress, which is another one of her designs, which I'll share with you in just a bit. Oh, and when the garment was completed, after I steamed the garment, I did a final steam press just to make everything all nice and neat and straight, and it worked out nicely. I find myself, I've worn the garment twice so far, and I think it's a bit too casual for my liking to wear like at work or even at school. I typically wear it when it's just an easy Saturday, a day that I'm not going anywhere, when I'm walking to Robbie, going outside for a grocery run. Those were the times that I did wear it, and I think it works perfectly for that. And it feels really cool and light, and I wore it on really hot days, and that's the good thing, because that mesh pattern allows the breeze to flow through, and so it is quite lovely. I did get some footage, and I'll insert that here. Okay, let's talk about a project I'm super excited about. Of course, I forgot to bring the book, but I'll be back. I was sharing with you in the previous episode my plans to make the Autumn Vine sweater by Dee Hardwick. This is from her seasonal palette collection with Rowan, the Autumn Winter 2019. The entire book is beautiful. I love the images. I just wish it was even larger, like, but it has quite a few lovely patterns, and I just love flipping through it and looking at the images of her drawings and artwork that they have in the book. But I digress. I immediately flocked to the autumn vine sweater. I thought it was so beautiful. I really love that colorway. I love those autumn vine leaves. I was so tempted to go with the exact colorway because I loved it so much. But in the end, after changing the color from even my plants, I was going to go with the cumin and night sky color. But in the end, I went with the K-Facet Vaseline green color, and I paired it with these night sky. Is it night sky or is it just sky? Let me check. Yes, I paired it with these night sky color, and this is a new shade, and I think it's just the perfect blue. It is so beautiful. I love it so much. And so I went with that color, and I just, oh, I like it. I love it. It's so beautiful. Also, I like this project because I was never like afraid of intarsia, and I've done intarsia before, but this project just increased my love for intarsia because it's like Dee said, it's like you're drawing with yarn, and intarsia does give you that ability. And one thing I loved about the pattern is that the intarsia was like, it just wasn't on the front. It was on the front, it was featured on the back, and then it's on the sleeves. So you get that beautiful design everywhere. I like it. I like it so much. The only thing that I hate is that it's definitely not cold enough to wear it here. I I like to try on garments a lot to see how they fit with my wardrobe. So I've been trying the garment on a lot here in my apartment, and I've been like prancing around, not even imagining, but pairing it with different outfit combinations, and it looks so lovely. And I'm just like, oh, when will it get colder so I can wear this, so I can live in it all fall and winter? And I like it so much. I also like the positive ease. Yes, you guys. You know, I usually love the fitted garments, the crop versions, but something about this, I was just like, you know, I'm staying with the positive ease. I'm staying with the length. Well, I did shorten it by 3/4 of an inch, but typically it's closer to the finished garment's length. And I like it so much. It looks really nice with shorter length skirts, and also just slacks and pants, and it's also perfect for layering. So I'm anticipating that I will wear this quite a bit in the coming months. Let's see. Let's get into some of the details. First off, the yarn is absolutely beautiful. This is my first garment with rolling felted tweed, and it definitely won't be the last. I don't know if it's too early to say, but dare I say it's my favorite yarn, period. Oh, it's a tweedy yarn, and I love tweed yarns. They're my favorite. And then it produces like the most beautiful lightweight fabric. It was surprisingly light, but it's still so cozy, and I love that so much. And then the color range, oh my goodness, I have plans to use every color in that color range with some project or another. And in a future episode, I'll tell you about my plans to make a intarsia heirloom blanket. And I've been slowly adding rolling felted tweed to my stash. Like I would buy skein here and there from the knit shop for this heirloom blanket. And that heirloom blanket is also by Dee Hardwick. Can you tell I'm a fan? So yes, the yarn is super lovely. But other details, I use mattress stitch throughout. I find mattress stitch to be quite easy and just really quick with stockinette, because this project is definitely mostly stockinette. And the seaming went together really nicely. Did kind of misalign my stripes on one side slightly. Not sure if you see that, but I think it's okay. And yes, also the pattern suggested working the neck back and forth, but I didn't find that to be so I didn't think it was very productive, so I instead worked the neck in the round. So that is it for my autumn vine sweater. I'm super pleased with it, and I did block it using the soak blocking solution. I blocked the pieces before seaming because I wanted my intarsia to lie very neat and flat, and so I blocked the pieces first and then I seamed the garment. And because the neckline was worked after seaming, I just placed a damp cloth over that neckline to block it, to make it have a neat flat finish. And I love this, you all. I love it so much so that I think I already said I was going to cast on the winter fill, and I did cast on the winter fill, which is a design from this same publication. Well, I'll insert the footage of the design here. I can't stop grinning. I get so emotional when I think about this project because it's been a week since I finished it, and I still can't believe that I did it. I just stare at it and I'm just like, wow. I don't even have the words. I could go on and on and on, so much so that I had to type up a document. Yes, to help myself to stay focused when I talk about this garment. This is my most monumental knitting garment to date. I'm so proud of it. I think it's, what's wrong with me? Why am I getting emotional over a garment? But, you know how you look at something and it just seems so amazing and such a feat that you're not sure if you could do it, and it kind of seems like, oh, I'm not going to even touch that, with a 10-foot pole, but I'll just admire it from afar. And I think that's how I felt about the I'm talking about the Jane Seymour, a design by Alistair Moore from her book To the Roses. So to stay focused, let me get started. I'm gonna just tell you because I anticipate that I'll talk about this quite a bit, and this will be the details that I share. I'll give you an introduction, some pattern details. I'll next move into my new or enhanced skills. Then I'll talk about the finishing of this garment, and then I wanted to end with my thoughts and also a little cherry on top. Okay, so let me begin from the beginning. If you are a tea drinker or a coffee drinker, or if you just want to come back, because I'm about to talk for a while, and then settle in, and I'll spill the details on my Jane Seymour by Alistair Moore. So, let me just move this out the way. First off, this is my copy. I know you noticed that I have the hardback version back there, but this book is so beautiful. Virtual Yarns, that's Alistair Moore's company, they do such an amazing job with the photography, with the styling, with the scenery of their garments that is all very inspiring. Before I even started my Jane Seymour, I would go to their website literally every night for a while. I would end my night by just looking at the website, zooming in on the pictures, looking at those garments, because they were just so amazing. And looking at even the yarns, because the yarns, the undertones in the yarns, the photography is amazing because it really captures the details, the beautiful details of those yarns. And so I finally purchased my own copy. This is the paperback version. Might I suggest, if anyone is interested in making some garments from Two to Roses, I would suggest that you purchase a paperback copy, which I consider to be my workhorse copy, with all of my notes. Like, I have many notes in the book, and I also have the librarian in me will not allow for me to write in a book with the ink pen, or is that the archivist in me? But I do jot in my books a lot with pencils. And so this is definitely the version that I work from. This is the version for the coffee table, to look beautiful, to share with your friends and family. And so I purchased the book, and I just love the narratives in the book. You would literally become so engrossed in this book, because not only is the photography and the garments beautiful, but they give you a backstory to each historical figure that they're covering in the book. And I love history. I love old things. I love things from the past, and I'm completely enamored with the Tudor era. And so to have that narrative accompanying the garment, it really made you feel connected with that person. And then in the end of the book, they have the knitting details, which I also love. So you can pretty much guess that I just scoured this book from front to finish. And I've even read the patterns. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I like to read the patterns just to kind of imagine how things will work up when I make it. And so I like to read the patterns. And it really works because it kind of gives you a familiarity with the pattern before you even cast on. I know I did that with my Jane Seymour. I read it quite a bit before I cast on, but I still needed to just dive in to really get an idea of how things were going to work up. Okay. I still haven't referred to my notes while I'm doing all of that talking. Okay, first let me begin with my discovery of Alice Starmore. She's a knitting legend, definitely, but prior to my entry into the podcast world or viewing podcasts, I never, or I wasn't that familiar with her. I wouldn't say I never heard of her, because there was a book, I remember, and someone even responded when I talked about this many episodes back, about a person wrote a book and they called it their Mount Everest sweater, and they had plans to make a Henry VIII garment because it was considered a very difficult knitting project over the course of a year. So I remember reading that book in the book section years ago, early into my knitting journey. But that was pretty much the breadth of my awareness of her. So then I started watching Eva of the Charm of It. Such a lovely podcast. And so she was gifted a birthday gift, Alice Starmore yarns. And I thought, wow, those are so beautiful. They're so lovely. And so that was the first time I checked out their yarns. And so I was like, wow, that is beautiful. And I love following Eva along. She made, I think she made 2 garments, 2 vests out of the yarns, because it is an authentic wool. And she found that she didn't like the wool against her skin. And so she made these beautiful fair out vests with the wools. So that's how I heard a bit more about Alice Starmore. Then I received a recommendation for another podcast, because you know how YouTube is, when you keep watching things, they recommend things. And it was for the Fruity Knitting podcast. And so I started watching it, and it's funny because sometimes the recommendations, they don't show you like the first episode of a channel. And I feel like the first episode was episode 4. It's sad that I know that number by heart, but that's the episode specifically dedicated to Two to Roses. And then after I watched that episode, I went back to episode 1. And in episode 4, Andrea was wearing, hands down, the most beautiful knitted garment I ever seen in my life. And I was like, wow. And it was the Anne Boleyn from this book. and it was so beautiful, and she executed it so nicely. And then she started talking about Alistair Moore, and she started talking about the book. This is what she was wearing. And so she started talking about the book, and I just couldn't. I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is out of this world. And then I remember watching episode 1, and she was wearing her Henry VIII garment, and I thought it was amazing because not only did she take such an intricate, detailed design, but she also modified it. You know, she I don't know if she added waist shaping, but I know she shortened it, and then she also changed the sleeves because originally it has a drop sleeve. And I was like, wow, will I ever get to that level of knitting? I was like, I really hope I get there one day. So I just kept looking at it, and then finally I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop stalking the Virtual Yarns website. I'm going to just stop looking at every image, and I'm just going to do it. So after looking through the book, I was really tempted to choose, because she has some lovely one-color designs, such as the Queen Elizabeth garment. It is so beautiful, but I knew that I could create that. And then also there's the Anne of Cleves garment, which has beautiful cables, and it was also a garment that used one color. But I also felt that I was placing limitations on myself, and so I looked at the book. I said, just look through the book. What do you think is the most stunning, beautiful design, period, out of the entire book? Which is a hard choice. Like, no limitations. What is it? And it was the Jane Seymour. And I was like, that's the kit you're going to get, and you're going to do this. You're going to do this. And, you know, I even mentioned this on my Instagram stories. I don't know if any of you saw the cartoon movie Anastasia. It was produced back in the 90s. And there was this song that, you know, children's songs, they stick with you throughout your lifetime. So they know what they're doing when they get these motivational songs. And there's this song in a movie that always sticks with me whenever I'm about to overcome a hurdle, whether it's school or accomplishing some major thing or task. And the song is like, if you can learn to do it, I can learn to do it. And ever since then, whenever it comes to something that I'm really, like, I remember I was stressing over my driver's exam, and that song came up in my head, like, there's so many drivers out there. If they're doing it, I can do it. And so I was looking at Andrea's garments, and I was like, can I do it? Can I do it? And then guess what? That song popped into my head. If you can learn to do it, I can learn to do it. I'm not a singer, but I just really like singing that song. And so I knew that I could learn to do it. So I chose the Jane Seymour, and it's funny because at first I was thinking about substituting the yarn, but after looking at Andrea's podcast, she talked so eloquently, I'll say, about the yarn, and also Eva did a great job of covering the yarn. I was like, I can't do a disservice to this pattern. I can't substitute the yarn. I have to use the same yarn. But I did not want to go with that same colorway because, as you all know, green is my favorite color. And I knew that this project would be a labor of love. And so I wanted to go with a color that, first of all, when I was staring at the website, was the most beautiful green ever. And it was called Bog Bean. And I could just imagine a Jane Seymour with that backdrop of Bog Bean. But all of the other colors, I loved. The corn crepe with the diagonal lines, the different colors for the embroidery knots. So I only changed the main color. And I was trying to find an image of the Jane Seymour for you, which is so beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't it stunning? So, I also want to say these pieces are definitely like works of art. And Alice Starmore is an artist. She's a Scottish artist. And not only does she does knitting, but she does photography. Is it watercolor? Let me check my notes. Well, she does photography, drawing, and painting. And she, you could see from the pieces that her talent, it just shines through in the garments. And so the yarn was Hebridean 2-ply. And the yarn can be purchased in loose form. Like, it doesn't have to be attached with the kit, but my yarn was purchased as a part of the Jane Seymour kit, so I purchased the entire kit. And yes, it is. I also like that each kit, I'm glad I put this note, it gives you 8% more yarn than is needed to work up the pattern. And that worked out quite nicely for me, because as I talk about this more, I did make an error, and I was still nervous that I would run out of yarn. And I was like, oh no, I thought I would have to place another order with Virtual Yarns. And they're overseas in Scotland, and I was like, wow, I'm gonna have to wait 2 more weeks, you know, to finish this. But in the end, I didn't, and I had plenty of yarn to correct that mistake, so that pleased me to no end. So I like that she gives you that extra yarn for a margin of error. And as I mentioned, my main color was Bog Bean. My contrast color for those beautiful diagonal lines is Corn Crepe. And the accent colors of the knots are Driftwood, Mountain Hare, Sundew, and Golden Plover. It's funny because in my notes I wrote this wrong color, but I know those colors by heart, and I know that it was Golden Plover. And the colors, they work together so harmoniously. And because I had yarn left over, I'm going to tell you some of my plans. And you heard it here first. Maybe a year or two now, after I work about 2 or 3 more Alice Star Moore designs, I love to watch the Crimson Stitchery podcast, and she likes to use her scrap yarns, and I love how sustainable that is, instead of just letting scrap yarns lay to waste. And I was thinking, since these colors blend and work together so beautifully, that one day I want to make a scrappy sweater, but a very elegant scrappy sweater with those colors. And yeah, that's my plan. And so I'm saving and holding on to my extra yarn, because I hope to do that one day. A scrappy sweater or a cardigan, because cardigans definitely get more wear in my wardrobe. We'll see. So, this is the garment, and these are the beautiful colors, and I love how they work together so nicely. I purchased this pen specifically for this cardigan, and it sat in my house for 2 years because I refused to wear it with anything else. In my mind, that pen was for this cardigan and this cardigan alone, and it's quite beautiful. There are so many details on the pattern that I just love. Also, I'll briefly say that I made the size small, and I went for a tighter gauge because even the smallest size was larger than my sizing. My bust is 32, and I knew that was larger, so I went for a tighter gauge, and I went down 2 needle sizes. So I used a 2.25 millimeter, a 2.50 millimeter, and a 2.75 millimeter. And I will say that let's move into some of the I guess I'll talk about my enhanced skills. So first, when I first started the project, when I was doing my gauge swatch, I knew that I needed to learn to cable without a cable needle, because those diagonal lines, that's cabling. And so I knew that I needed to learn to cable without a cable needle. So I looked at a tutorial by Very Pink Knits, and I put the link to that tutorial in my Ravelry notes. And I was like, wow, that's easy. And so I taught myself really quickly to cable without a cable needle. So this is the first project that I learned that from. I also learned how to purl continental style, because it's also a stranded project. And so you probably could see the texture, but between those diamonds, those are pearls, as you can see. And I was like, oh, I'm already teaching myself continental style. Yes, I had to teach myself continental style, which with holding the yarn with both hands, which I learned from, yes, this book, Alice Star Moore's Fair Isle Knitting book. But I was like, how can I learn to purl continental style? So I simply went to YouTube. I don't even remember the tutorial, but I saw a tutorial on how to purl continental style, and I remember the teacher saying, just give it a gentle tug down, and it'll work out, it'll stay in place. And it worked. And I also, because I often get requests about how I knit, and also I received a special message about purling continental style. So one day while I was working up my sleeve, I was like, you know what, I'll record some footage of that. And so I'll insert that footage here. Okay, so I often get questions about how I knit, and also I received an inquiry about how I purl on the continental style. And so since I was kind of on this row of my Jane Seymour sleeve, I will say that after a while with the stitch pattern, you do learn to see where things are going and what to do, and so you know what you're doing. So I thought that I'd just record this, and this may not be the easiest with this tripod here, but I'm going to try. So these are I have to do a series of purls, and as you can see, when I purl, I swing the yarn around, and I saw this on a YouTube video when I was also asking questions on how to purl continental style, and the instructor said you just simply give it a gentle kind of tug, and it does keep things in place. And I don't know if the yarn also is playing a factor because it's a sticky yarn. So that's just, I'm typically a thrower when it comes to knitting. So now I'm coming back to purling. And as you can see also, I'm holding the two different strands of yarn colors in different hands. Okay, at this point I need to cable. So what I'm going to do is I'm cabling without a cable needle, and then I just bring that stitch over, put this back on the left needle, and now I'm ready to purl. Looks like I lost my grip, but I'm ready to purl. So that's pretty much how I've been knitting my Jane Seymour, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm happy that I picked it back up because, as I've stated, once you get in a rhythm of this project, it's best to just keep at it, because when I took the break, I kind of forgot the rhythm and the stitch pattern a bit, and I had to refresh my memory. Just doing another cable here, but I now feel really familiar with the process again. I'm hoping to share this finished monumental garment with you all soon. Alright, you guys, bye. So that is how I worked up the main pattern. Now I thought that once I finished the knitting, that everything would go together so quickly and easily and smoothly with the embroidery, but the embroidery took about 3 days. Yes, it was about 3 days, and that was 3 days of hours of work. I really messed up the back portion of the embroidery the first time around. I will say, read these instructions to the T, because I never really read in depth the finishing, because I always thought finishing, you know, that should go along really easily. Well, I should have read it in detail, and when I was doing the embroidery knots, and then I was like tying it off, I was like, no, this can't be right. These knots are just literally knots, and it looks ugly, very ugly on the inside. So I went to Ravelry to see what Ravelers made the pattern up, and I saw that their embroidery on the inside of the garment was looking quite lovely. So I went back to the book, read the pattern in detail, and I saw that I should have been weaving my yarn within the weaving it, I'll just say, and then before I worked the next knot. And when I did that, everything was coming together so beautifully. And so I was like, oh, am I going to have enough yarn? But I went back and I corrected that mistake, and so I'm really pleased with that. And also, this garment, I think that what makes it go over the top and that takes it to that next level is the finishing. And you don't want to skimp on the finishing, and that's what I knew. And so when I would find myself getting kind of tired and kind kind of exhausted, then I would take a break. I'll just like take a break. I'd go outside, watch the rabbit, drink a cup of coffee, and I'll come back to it because for example, the rose leaf edgings, those were really fun to work up, but you do have to take your time. And then for some reason, well, there are more rose leaves. The rose leaf edging on the collar, it took an entire day for me to do that collar, just that collar alone. So that gives you an idea of how I don't want to say time consuming. Yeah, I'll say time consuming the finishing to be. And also with the collar, I was thinking like a sewer. For some reason, I was attached the fabrics right sides together. So after creating all of those rose leaf edgings for the collar, I attached the collar to the wrong side. So I had to unpick the collar and attach it the correct way. And can you believe I was up until 4 a.m.? Like, I wasn't watching the time because I was so consumed. It was over Labor Day weekend. Oh, I'm so happy it was a 3-day weekend. And before I knew it, on Sunday, I was up until 4 a.m., or rather leading into Monday. And so I was like, oh my goodness, but I stayed up till 4. I fixed the mistake. It was looking beautiful. And so I was like, I have to go to bed. I have to go to bed. But I was so excited. I felt like it was Christmas morning or Christmas Day. And so I went to bed at around 4:30. And before I knew it, I hopped up. I was up at 7:30 a.m. Like, I was that excited because I was like, oh, today is the day. I think I'm going to finish it today. And so I hopped up. So I had like 3 hours of sleep. I hopped up that morning and I got right into the seaming. And I did back stitch throughout the garment. I always knew I wanted to do back stitch because Andrea, she's a big fan of back stitching. And she... I knew that her garments always looked so nice and tailored and the finishing was perfect. So I knew that I was going to go with back stitch for this garment. I also like the instructions that they instructed us to press the seams with the damp cloth, and I did do that. Like, I'm telling you, everything that the pattern told me to do, I did. I was like, I can't shortchange the pattern because I want my garment to look so beautiful. And so everything that they told me to do, I did it. So that is it. I think I covered everything. I think the fit is perfect. I love this yarn. I think I already said it, but I plan to, make a scrappy sweater with my scraps one day. Also, I have a kit for the Elizabeth of York coming. I'm so ready for it to get here. I placed the order about a week ago, and so that is the next project, and I'm excited because it also used Alistair Moore's Hebridean 2-ply. But we'll talk about that in another episode. So I just wanted to give you some of my thoughts. Yes, I've always had a fascination with the Tudor period, but I'll be honest, my favorite is Queen Elizabeth. I think that she's just dynamic, phenomenal, amazing. The things that I wish I could be, just bold, and I love that. And also I loved her sense of fashion and her love for the arts. And so she was always my favorite. So of course my favorite queen of the 6 was her mother, because she produced such an amazing woman. Even though Elizabeth didn't get to know her mother that long before her mother was executed. And so I always had a fascination for Anne Boleyn. And you know, she was also amazing. I thought that she was also bold and out there. And for a woman to be that way during that era, it just always amazed me. And so those two are my favorite. But it's so funny because my rule for creating a garment from the Tudor Roses book was to choose the garment that I was most fascinated with. And that was the Jane Seymour. And that was the queen I was least fascinated with. And so I was like, you know what? I'm so happy though that I created her garment, or this garment that was inspired by her, because it made me become more interested in her. I wanted to learn more about her. I wanted to not just like, it wasn't her fault. I think I've always felt kind of towards Jane Seymour, because Henry claimed that was the only one he ever truly loved, which, you know, if she would have lived, she had postnatal problems and she died about 2 weeks after childbirth. he would have found a fault with her, I think. And so I think that's why I was least interested in her, but I wanted to learn more about her. And I'm going to recommend a book. I don't usually recommend books, but I've been listening to The Haunted Queen by Alison Ware. Oh my goodness, I've been listening to it, the audio book, and I was listening to it quite a bit while doing the embroidery. It's an amazing novel, and it provided details into Jane's life. I feel so common, like how dare I call her Jane? Okay, we're gonna say Queen Jane Seymour's life that I never knew about, and so I was pausing the book to like Google, like, wow, you know, just details about her father, her family life, and her brothers. It was all very amazing, and so I would definitely recommend that book. And so this garment, I'm really happy I chose to work it up because it made me form a new appreciation for Jane Seymour. And what was amazing was that she was in the court, and she worked as she was a lady in waiting for Catherine of Aragon, and then for Anne Boleyn. And so she was always around. And so can you imagine being around all of that drama, and then she was pushed to the forefront? So I found that quite fascinating. So it was really good. So yes, overall I am beyond pleased, if you can't tell, with this garment. So aesthetic. I love it so much. It made me think that whenever I see a knitted garment, or even a sewing garment or crochet garment, I won't place limitations on myself to say, oh, I don't think I could do that because of this technique or that technique. If I see it, then I'm gonna, and I like it, then I'm going to make it. Okay, I'm not. Yes, as I was saying, I'm not sure how many of you are Ariana Grande fans, but my niece is. This summer she came out with a song, and she was like, I see it, I like it, I want it, I bought it, right? So that is going to be my motto going forth with knitting panties. But I'm going to modify that quote. So if I see it, I like it, and I want it, then I'm going to make it, period. I'm not going to worry about the techniques and the details involved. I'm just going to do it. So I think I need to get my sister to put that on a t-shirt for me. I see it, I like it. Wait, see it, I like it. I see it, I like it, I want it, I made it. Yes. I had to think about the song in order to think of the quote. So the response to, I shared the garment in my knit group on Facebook, also on my Instagram, and also on Ravelry. And can I just say that the response has been overwhelmingly amazing. If any of you reached out or commented, I just want to say thank you. Thank you. Like, it was so, there was such an influx of comments that I couldn't keep up. And I always try to respond to people who comment on my Instagram, Ravelry, YouTube, wherever it may be, because I just want to connect with you all, but I just couldn't keep up. And so I would go in and I like the comments, and I tried to keep up and respond. Well, I received a comment from the Virtual Yarn site, and I've always been that student in school that I wanted to make the teacher proud. And no, Alice Star Moore is not my teacher, and she didn't teach me, but this was her pattern, and I wanted to make her proud and the company proud of these beautiful designs. And so when I received a comment from Virtual Yarns, I could have just, I don't have the words. I was literally in my apartment. I saw a comment from them, and I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I couldn't. I was just gushing. And but not only that, they thought the garment was beautiful. They loved the garment that I paired it with, that I sewed with it. And then they said, if you're ever in Scotland, I want a Tudor style photo shoot, the Scottish background, you can contact us. And I was like, what? Like, what? And so I was like, you know what? This is an opportunity of a lifetime. And my sister and I, we've been trying to plan, our schedules have been crazy, an international trip for a while. And I was like, I called her up. I was like, April, this is it. We have to go to Scotland. We have to go to Scotland. And so she was like, yes. She's like, I'm down. And so we're making plans to go to Scotland. I'm so excited. We were just talking this morning. We contacted the travel agency. We're trying to decide, even though we could get to either place, I think within an hour when I was looking at the schedule, whether we should go to Glasgow or Edinburgh. And my dad, he suggested Edinburgh, and April is also on that same route. And so I want to go to Glasgow because I wanted to see that school there, the fine art school. But I figure if we're there, we could probably take transportation to go, because it shouldn't be too long of a distance or travel. So we're gonna go to Edinburgh, it looks like. And so we're just getting all of our ducks in a row, trying to have everything finalized by the end of the month. So I'm just so happy to share that with you here. And I'm looking forward to just being there. Now, if I go to Scotland, right, I have to make another historical figure that I sometimes feel some type of way towards, but I have to make her garment. And that's Mary, Queen of Scots. And so, let me show it to you. Where is it? That will be my third garment from this book. I already said that I have plans to make the Elizabeth of York. And so, this garment. I think it's beautiful. I love the colors there, but since I've already used bog bean, I'm not going to use that color. I actually already decided my colorway, and I've been comparing colors, looking at the virtual yarn site as I do, and I love the color choices that I have for that. So I also mentioned that I have a kit coming for my Elizabeth of York. I chose this design because I was like, hey, I need a break from sleeves. Those sleeves were quite detailed, and it took quite a long time with Jane Seymour. And so I'm going to make this beautiful design. Again, those colors are lovely, but again, I chose other colors because I was thinking about things that match my wardrobe. And so I'm going with this kind of navy blue backdrop, which is called Kelpies. And for my contrast color, I'm going with Sea Ivory. It looks like a grayish greenish color, which I think is beautiful. And so those are my plans. I think that if you're from America, there's a company, Lay's Potato Chips, and they say you can't eat just one. Well, I think that that's the same goes for Alistair Moore Designs. You can't make just one. And so I actually have plans, quite an ambitious plan, to work my way through this entire book. And so, yes, I plan to do that. And I'll let you all know how it goes. that is mainly it for today's episode, but I definitely have some other things to share with you. Oh goodness, what am I wearing today? This is Simplicity. It was one of their vintage re-releases, but I don't know. I was trying to go find that pattern number for you. But I think it's Simplicity 8951, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's really lovely design. I really love the Puritan collar, and I paired it with a brooch that was a birthday gift from my dad a few years ago, and I like to wear it a lot. This was with some quilting cotton, if I'm not mistaken, but I think it gives a nice structure to the dress. The skirt portion makes it look quite full, and I like to wear this dress when I don't feel like thinking about putting together an outfit, and so you can throw it on but still look quite put together. I was just trying to find that number for you all, in case someone wanted to know. Okay, I had the numbers right, but I had the order wrong. But it's Simplicity 8591. Also, I wanted to make some podcast recommendations for you all. Some good podcasts that I've been following. Maria, A Stitched in Sweden. She's an American, but now she lives in Sweden. She recently married, and also she's expecting. But she's a knitter and a great seamstress. I mean, such detailed and precise and neat finishing that is out of this world. And she made a backpack, and I was like, wow. So that's been like on my queue and to-do list to do one day. Also, Dana of Yards of Happiness. She's called me DWJ on Instagram, and she's an epic sweater knitter. I forgot the count. Is she up to 300 sweaters she's made so far? Amazing. So check her out. And finally, I definitely have to give a shout out to Kia's of the Kia's Ball podcast in Sweden. First of all, she's amazing because she records 2 podcasts, one in Sweden and one in an English version also. And so I just think that's quite a bit of work because those of you who podcast know that there's quite a bit of work into it. And even with my uncle podcast, I'm amazed that the amount of work that goes into it. So for her to do that, I just think that's so generous. But she was the motivation for me to complete my Jane Seymour, because I cast the project on in October of 2017. And she had this good strategy of working on a project for 30 minutes a day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that for my Jane Seymour. So I worked on the project for 30 minutes a day. And before I knew it, the sleeve slowly started to grow. And I would take pictures of the garment after the 30 minutes a day, and I would post it to my Insta stories, and it was so satisfying seeing that sleeve grow. And another thing is, like she said, of course the strategy is at least 30 minutes a day, but of course once you get started and you get in the zone, many times you'll find yourself working past the 30 minutes. So I love that strategy, and she creates beautiful garments. She's also a sewer, she's a spinner too, and she's a knitter. And she also is kind of inspiring me to make more shawls, because I like how she pairs her shawls with her dresses. And so the scenery is so beautiful, the grounds around her home. I just love the podcast, as you can tell. And I think I've watched every episode now, like binge watched all of them. And I think that, I don't know if I have time, but I wanted to share with you some recent acquisitions that I have planned. I've been wanting to make more solid colored dresses. And so I purchased some fabric from Joann's, and I especially want to make 2 especially made dresses for my next 2 Alice Starmore garments. The Mary Queen of Scots, I purchased some fabric, and also I purchased fabric to make a dress for my Elizabeth of York. And I'll be right back. Give me just a second. Yeah, so all of this fabric is from Joann's, and I've used this is their stretch cotton twill, and I've used it before for pants, and then also did I use it for that black dress? Another black dress that I made. So first I purchased this beautiful royal blue color because I know that that's going to go nicely in my wardrobe. I would like to try another pattern, but I'm thinking if this is going to be a garment that pairs well with most of my knits, I still need to go with a high neck fit and flare type dress. So most likely it'll be something similar to Simplicity 2444, or it may be Simplicity 2444. We shall see. This beautiful gold color. Oh guys, how beautiful is that? So this is going to be a garment, a dress, specifically for my Mary Queen of Scots. I'll share the colors with you in the future, but I'm going with the definitely a golden slash deep brown theme for that garment. And I'm thinking, we'll see once the yarn arrives, that this would look quite nice with my Elizabeth of York. I mentioned that the contrast color was a type of green, but it's a lighter shade of green, really closer to gray. But I still think that it may look really nice with this fabric here. And I think also I like this fabric because it looks really nice with my Jane Seymour. Let me show it to you. And so I think that if I make a dress, I'll get multiple much wear out of it. So those are my recent acquisitions, and all of those were purchased from Joann's because I just want some new solid colored tops in my wardrobe. Well, that concludes this episode. Thank you for just settling in and hearing all about my crafting adventures, and I look forward to seeing you all in about a month's time. Bye. So I got so excited talking about my Jane Seymour that I completely skipped my works in progress. Like, what is wrong with me? And so I noticed my little basket of works in progress is just sitting there all by its lonesome. So let's get into the works in progress. First up is my winter feel sweater. Where's the book? This is a design by Dee Hardwick. I just feel so unprepared. I just had that book, right? Okay, I see it. Uh-oh. So it is this beautiful design. I love that version. I love those colors. But as you all know, I like to try out other colors. So I went with cumin and treacle, which I think is so lovely. And this is how far I've gotten so far, and I've been doing yarn butterflies for the intarsia. I think this would be a great project for someone who wants to venture into intarsia for the first time, because it's quite simple, because those lines are just straight up. And yeah, so that's going along quite lovely. I did go down 2 needle sizes, just as I had to do for the autumn vine sweater. So I'm using a US 3 and a US 4. I had to go down to get gauge. But it's going along so nicely, and I'm really excited that soon I'll have another Rowan Felted Tweed garment, because I like that yarn. I like it a lot. And then I, spur of the moment, I decided to cast on, let's see this, the Metropolis cardigan, which is a new design by Tatiana Kopriamchik. She came on an episode of Fruity Knitting, and I thought that her crochet designs was quite lovely and amazing. And so I knew that I wanted to do one of her garments one day and try out her patterns. I really like the cardigan that she was wearing during the interview, but surprisingly, I cast the Metropolis cardigan on first. I went to my stash, and so I had this Knit Picks palette yarn in the color Urchin, which is this beautiful dusky purple color. And so I finished short rows for the back. This was my first time creating short rows with crochet. I did mess it up the first time around, and I had to rip it out and start over, but I got it the second time around. I just had to kind of focus and pay attention and take good notes, and it went together quite nicely. So I remember going down in hook size to get gauge, but I'm not sure exactly which hook size I went down. Check my Ravelry page for details. Yeah, I think that is such a beautiful design. She has 2 sleeve options with this design. You can go for the balloon sleeves, which I thought was so like elegant and just very, like, I can't describe, I can't think of a word, but and then also you have that option with the lace cuff. And I did an Instagram poll because I really couldn't make up my mind, and so the lacy cuff was chosen, so I'm going to go with the lacy cuff for that design. And finally, I have another crochet work in progress, which is by TL Yarn Crafts, and this is the Garden Party shawl. So beautiful. What's that in the shop? And it requires 2 skeins of a fingering weight yarn in the main color, and then you need a contrast color. And so I had this, let me get it up for you. So I purchased this beautiful yarn. I think I shared it previously. It's called Reef, and it's from Skein Deep Yarns, which is a local dyer here in Columbia, South Carolina. She's amazing. She's also at the Luna Lola yarn shop, and so she's really great with colors. I often seek her advice for color combinations and choices. But this is how far I've gotten so far. It's quite beautiful. I just thought the design was quite nice. I don't typically make shawls, and I'm not sure how I'm going to wear it or when I'm going to wear it. Kind of tempted to give it to my mom, but we'll see. And so yeah, I thought that that royal blue with this reef color was quite stunning, so I think it's quite beautiful. It's quite an easy pattern, and I've been working on it kind of like just randomly on some random nights just to wind down, because it's just like the emotion is really repetitive and soothing, and I really like that. I also went down to a 3.5 millimeter hook because when I was first working with the hook suggested, and I don't do gauge for accessories, I felt that the I thought that the lace work was too open, and so I wanted it to be a bit more closed in, so I went down a hook size. Okay, that really is it for this episode and my works in progress. I can't believe that I got all discombobulated and went all out of order, but hopefully it's not too choppy for you and you were able to follow along. So again, I'll say bye, and I'll see you later.